This week on the Racing Insiders, we look at the roar before the 24 tests at Daytona. John DeGeese, Sports Car 365, comes and gives us all the latest, including an inside look at the rule book that's just been introduced, and the start of the Dakar Rally, the opening of the racing season. We get a chance to hear from Robby Gordon before his disastrous start in the rally. All that's next on the Racing Insiders. Welcome back to the Racing Insiders. Our first show for 2014. Hope you had a happy and safe new year. I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. Jeff Lepper is in Folsom, California. And we're with John DeGeese, our Tudor United Sports Car Championship correspondent, Sports Car 365. He's at the Media Center in Daytona. John, tell us about the roar before the 24 test session. A lot happened this weekend.
Absolutely, Bill. It was a packed 3 days of testing here at Daytona. A lot of new car debuts, a lot of new teams, new drivers. Everything was sort of like a fresh sheet of paper here, and we learned a lot in terms of how the balance of performance is going to shake out, and how all these cars are from the ALMS and from Grand Am are going to play together come later this month in the Rolex 24.
And the one thing that, before we go into any more detail, I understand that a rule book was handed out finally. We're 3 weeks from the drop of the green flag, and now we know the rules.
Absolutely. IMSA released their sporting code Sunday afternoon, and just with a few hours left to go in testing. And it basically outlined what the procedures will be for qualifying points, wave buys, etc. And it's great to see that finally come out. They also set the balance of performance guidelines earlier in the weekend, so everybody knew what configuration to run in. So slowly but surely, everything's sort of coming together for the season, and it's starting to look quite encouraging.
Any surprises in the rules? There was a lot of gefluffle about the aero. Any surprises there?
No big surprises in terms of the aerodynamics for the cars. The Daytona prototypes are going to be running Daytona without the rear diffuser. There was obviously some issues there in November back here at testing when Joao Barbosa and Richard Westbrook, namely, had some pretty big accidents after a tire failure, and they were spun around and caught air when going backwards at close to 200 miles an hour. And Continental rolled out with an updated tire, and that's worked brilliantly. There's been no issues at all over the last few tests, and now IMSA has decided to get rid of the diffuser to reduce the amount of downforce and the amount of load on the cars, and to sort of help with the balance of performance process as well. We saw the DPs run in the 138 range here. I think the quickest car was Christian Fittipaldi. He did a 138.630, and then the quickest P2 car was Ryan Dalziel at a 139.750. So just about a second difference, and that's a big gap, big leap forward over what was seen just last month. The difference there was of close to 3 to 4 seconds. Now we're down to a second. So I think they're working on a good way to get everything balanced for the season opener.
Well, yeah, I saw the GT categories as well with the Corvettes and the new SRT Viper. They're looking pretty good, as well as Porsche's announced their factory drivers with their programs. Do you think that's going to be something that Porsche's doing by providing their factory drivers to the different teams only before the 24-hour, or will they do that for all the endurance races?
The factory support for Porsche will definitely be in place for the full year in GT Le Mans. That's their main focus this year with the two-car Core Autosport run operation. It'll be run under the Porsche North America banner. And in GT Daytona, I think we'll be seeing a few factory drivers here or there, but mainly probably just for the Tequila Patron North American Endurance Cup rounds. Maybe here, Sebring, Watkins Glen, and Petit, and maybe a couple odd rounds here or there. But most of the factory guys we're seeing in GT Daytona, they all have full season rides elsewhere. Guys like Timo Bernard, who's going to be jumping on board for the 24, he's going to be driving the LMP1 car in the WEC, for instance. So I think the major focus from a factory standpoint will definitely be on their new 911 RSRs in GT Le Mans.
Now, also with the Continental Challenge Tire Series, they tested at Daytona as well. Any big stories besides it always being a BMW race? It seems like they were fast in all the practice sessions in GS and in ST.
There was plenty of action with the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge as well. Not a huge turnout. I was sort of surprised by that. I think there were around 50, 55 cars testing over the weekend here, and usually we're used to seeing 90, 100 car grids at times. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in a few weeks, and once the entry list comes out.
Two-time champion Muscle Milk program, they're out of the P2 car, and they've got some new drivers. And how did that overall look? How did that? I'm really interested in how the kings of what was ALMS, how they worked out in this new world order.
Yeah, it was quite interesting to see teams like Muscle Milk and then Extreme Speed Motorsports and even somebody like Level 5 Motorsports, for instance. They were racing in a P2 and ALMS. Now they're in GT Daytona with 2 Ferraris. And with Muscle Milk, it's obviously a big change for them, going from a P1 Honda HPD last year and moving down to an Orica Nissan. But they've secured some backing from Nissan for the year, and they've become an official partner team, which has also helped them get Alex Brundle, the son of Martin Brundle, for the Rolex 24. And he's a really quick driver from Europe, has done a lot over the last couple of years in LMP2 machinery and knows that Nissan power plant very well. So Muscle Milk, it took them a little getting used to get up to speed. They didn't have the right size restrictor for this weekend since the rules came out so late. They were running the car in full ACO spec, and over here the restrictor is going to be 5% larger to help speed up the cars in the balance of performance process between the P2s and the DPs. So they were running in the 140 range. The ESM car, which is tested here a few times before already, was down to 139. So, ESM seems to be really fitting in quite well already. They've been doing these tests for a while with the other teams and as part of the preseason program. So the integration between ALMS and into the prototype class seems to be going pretty well, but we'll all see it for fully materialize when the green flag flies later this month.
John, you're one of the great minds. I know you don't like me saying that. You're one of the great minds in sports car journalism. Tell us your personal observations after watching this big 3-day speed fest in Daytona.
Well, one of the big things to take away from this test was some uncertainty over some mechanical difficulties with the Ford-powered DPs. The Mike Shank and Chip Ganassi cars packed up early, actually, after the second day of testing on Saturday, and went back to their shops to try and fix some issues. It was reported that there might be some header problems with the exhaust, and might be some other issues as well with the new Ford EcoBoost power plants. Mike Shank adamantly said there was no problem with the actual motor. It's all the ancillary devices and things that go on it. I think they'll be fine for the race. I'm not too concerned. They were extremely quick. Jamie McMurray put up the 3rd quickest time of the weekend on Saturday, just before they decided to pack up. So something to keep an eye on. I think that's one thing for sure. Another thing is obviously the DP P2 balance of performance, as we've discussed, and also the PC class. Those cars are going to be doing their first 24-hour race later this month, and the longest they've run has been 12 hours. So the durability-wise, there might be some question marks there. There's also some question marks, in the durability of the P2s and the DPs. Especially with all the extra load put on the DPs. Are the suspension parts going to break off, or is there going to be issues in the 18th hour? Could we see a GT car possibly crack the top 10 overall? Who knows? There's so many question marks heading into the season right now.
I firmly expect to see that. It's funny you should mention it, but some of the faster GT cars, they are used to running 24 hours. The Corvettes at Le Mans, I expect to see that. Jeff, anything else?
I just, we talked a lot on our show, especially with you, John, about the limited number of entries that you have. Was everybody that tested this week guaranteed an entry already? Is there still people looking on the outside trying to look in?
It's an interesting situation, as there were initially 60 entries guaranteed for the Rolex 24, and IMSA expanded that to 68 due to the popularity of the championship and how many entries they received. I was told that they actually had 80 entry requests for the Rolex 24, and that included a lot of the full season teams as well. And what they're going to end up doing is sharing some pit boxes in order to accommodate a full 68 car grid. And in terms of teams looking out on the on the outside looking in, I don't think there are many left. There were a bunch of teams on the reserve list that have since sort of consolidated efforts. Conrad Motorsport is one of them. They joined forces with Dempsey Racing to run the second the Porsche 911 GT America, and Libra Racing. I don't think they'll be running Daytona, but there's some other possibilities, including a StarWorks Motorsport StarWorks Motorsport Daytona prototype that could be powered by a new power plant that's never been seen in Daytona prototype before. If they get an entry, that's the big question mark right now. But considering there's some prototype challenge teams that don't really have fully confirmed lineups yet, I'm expecting a couple of those cars to drop off, and that should make way for this StarWorks DP should their program be confirmed in the next few weeks.
You want to give us a little hint about what that new engine might be?
All I can say is it's something new that hasn't been run in a DP before, but it's a manufacturer that we're all familiar with.
It's good to hear Nissan is in the prototype, the top category. We've already had Ford and GM there, and if they're going to bring in a new engine, that shows the health of sports car racing, and if these manufacturers are getting involved, that's a good thing, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I think this is the big chance for all these manufacturers to ramp up their involvement, just like what Ford's doing this year with rolling out the EcoBoost. They're putting out a big marketing campaign around that engine and around that platform, and with Nissan jumping on board as an official partner of Muscle Milk Pickett Racing, that shows some increased involvement as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming years, and especially with the evolving prototype regulations. We're supposed to be getting a brand new rule book in 2017 that'll actually be consistent with the ACO regulations in Europe. For like an LMP2 style car that'll be eligible over here and overseas. So it's some really exciting times, and we have a lot to look forward to.
John DeGee, Sports Car 365. As always, you give us an enormous amount of meat to chew on. We appreciate you coming on board. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me on.
The Racing Insiders continues. Robby Gordon faces Dakar. Terrible, terrible problems. We'll be right back.
This segment of the Racing Insiders was brought to you by GoRacingTV.com. For racers, by racers. Want to keep up with all the racing action at the track? Well, download the new Go Racing TV iPhone and Android app. And remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to the Racing Insiders. Jeff, the Dakar Rally got underway last Sunday. Robby Gordon, his 10th try at the event, and already on the first day, he had some major problems.
Yeah, mechanical problems for him on the very first day on Sunday. We're going to have to see how that plays out over the rally. It's a long rally. We got 13 stages, 5,500 miles as they go through Argentina, Bolivia, into Chile. By far, I gotta think that this is one of my favorite races all year long. If I had to choose what races I want to go do, I think number one on my list is the Dakar. For the last 5 years, they've been in South America, not in Africa now. This is the third year now that I've gotten actually the navigation maps to be a navigator. Maybe I need to get a hold of Robby Gordon's team to kind of help his Hummer team out and navigate for him, be a mechanic and help him out, because I don't think I have enough money to be a driver and do the Dakar, but maybe I can work on my navigation skills and go do it.
Well, the event, B.J. Baldwin, another off-road champion, is also an American in the event. He'd lost almost an hour the first day. I think one of the major problems that American, especially off-road racers, have had is that they attack it like an off-road race, and it's not an off-road race. You can't beat back the mountains and the deserts of Dakar, whether they're in North Africa or in South America. I mean, this is not Baja. This is a major event, And it's a rally. It's not an off-road race. And I think that's been part of the problem for Americans to attack it, don't you think?
Well, it really is too. When you think about in North America, the only thing that even relates to this is the Baja 500, Baja 1000. In Europe, in South America, in Africa, they have a Dakar Rally Series that races all year long. NASA Alaterra, who's racing a Mini this year, he actually won the championship of the Dakar Rally Series last year. So these guys, like we mentioned on our show with DTM and Joey Hand, the American racing there, you really need to live there, I think, if you're going to excel. So I think if an American like Robbie Gordon or BJ Baldwin or any of the other bike racers, there's 2 American bike racers and 1 American quad racer that are racing, if you're going to succeed in the Dakar, you're going to have to go do all those races in the Dakar to get used to that type of format of racing.
You know, Mark Miller, an American stock guy, a very wealthy guy, but he was an off-road racer, and he raced with Volkswagen for several years, finished on the podium a couple of times, I believe, and he's written a book, a very good book about his experiences at Dakar, and he has told me that it's not an off-road race, and he has experience in both, and you really have to approach it with a different attitude in that you're not competing against the other drivers necessarily, but you're competing against this road that goes on for 2 weeks. And the thing that gets me is that at the Atacama Desert, the most driest place in the world, less than a half inch of rainfall a year, and it's almost 8,000 feet in the air. And you got to go through that to get to the other side, to the oceans in Chile. I mean, it's just an adventure of enormous proportion. And you've got to be able to understand that and be able to compete. You don't have service in Baja. I don't think people really understand that in Baja, you have service crews that are within a few hours of you. At the Dakar, your service is at the bivouac down the road, and you've got to get there in order to get service if you have a problem. So the Dakar Rally it's not an off-road race by any stretch, and anybody who treats it as such is going to get beaten back by the rally. I think we had some comments from Robbie before he started the event.
Growing up as a young kid, watching Pernella Jones, Mickey Thompson, AJ Foyt, pretty cool that I looked up to those guys and been fortunate enough to drive those race cars for those teams now. First time I ever raced at the Dakar Rally, the guy that I had to challenge every day was Colin McRae. We started on day 1, I won day 1. Colin won day 2, I won day 3, Colin won day 4, and on day 5 we both crashed out. It's a tough race. The Dakar Rally is, honestly, it's 15 Baja 500s. It's amazing how close the rally stays until people start getting stressed out, and then it just completely changes the game. At the Dakar, if you get a flat, you gotta get out and change yourself. If you have a problem mechanically, you gotta get creative, and you have to have redundant systems built into the car. It really does to start with the vehicle, and it comes down to mechanical abilities of the vehicle and not having any problems. If you think you can take a Baja car and go to Dakar, it's like bringing, honestly, a sword to a gunfight. When I'm gonna go design a truck like the new Gordini, it was what's the best package, and then try to optimize the package. We don't change rules, we make rules. And there will be rules made around this race car. Every one of the guys that work at our facility, I've heard people say, okay, there's dead bodies all over the place over there. The reality is these guys have to be committed to win. Second place is not acceptable. This is what I do for a job. It's not a hobby, it's not fun, it's a way of life.
So Robbie Gordon has a long road to hoe to even get to the finish, to even get to the rest day on day 6. Jeff, it's really very tough to approach this as an off-road race and just charge out there and expect to do well.
Well, that's right. The rest day it takes place round 6 tomorrow, and then the rest day is on Saturday. It's going to be interesting to see where Robbie Gordon excels in that two-wheel drive Hummer is in the Atacama Desert, like you mentioned before. A very lightweight, gets off those dunes really good, kind of bounces across the sand. He's going to have to excel to make up some time, and it's going to have to be in the Atacama Desert if he has a chance at Dakar this year.
It is amazing that the usual suspects, Nani Roma, Petter Hansel, Carlos Sainz, De Villes. Those are the guys that are near the front. They're rally drivers, and they know how to handle a car. Not a lot of horsepower, and not just overpower the terrain. You're not going to do that. Mother Nature is going to be there whether your car wins or not.
Are you kidding me?
Jeff, what's your Are You Kidding Me for this week?
Well, you talk about bringing a knife to a gunfight. How about bringing an army to a gunfight? The X-Raid rally team for the Dakar brought 11 minis to the Dakar this year, led by Stefan Peter Hansel, 11-time Dakar winner, leading that 11. They bring a whole army. 11 is just mind-boggling. 11 cars that they have to prep and maintain over 5,500 miles.
You know, the one thing, the Are You Kidding Me? I was going to talk about Monte Carlo, but you gave me an idea there. The guy that led the first day, Carlos Sousa from Portugal, is driving a Haval, a car that was built in China based on a BMW SUV, and there's two of them that was in the top 10 after day one. I mean, they come from all over the world. There was four minis. 5 minis. There was 5 minis after day one in the top 10. 2 of these Havals from China. 1 buggy, that's Carlos Sainz's buggy, a Toyota, and a Ford. That was the top 10. A little bit of everything in that category, and just in the cars, not counting the bikes. It's a great event. If you don't know about it, follow it, Dakar.com. On the calendar this week, we just had New Year's, and already we have motorsports events. We'll continue our coverage of the Dakar Rally, and we have the Dubai 24 Hour. John DeGeese told us after we were through that that's where he's going. That's where he is right now for the Dubai 24 Hour. And coming up the week after is a traditional event, the Monte Carlo Rally, opening the World Rally Championship season. Jeff, the racing is here already.
Yeah, I'm going to geek myself out this week. I'm going to have my iPad, my phone, and my computer all watching live timing and live coverage of the Dakar Rally. So that's all I'll be doing this week.
I never thought I did the same thing last weekend when the event started. I would never say I'm going to geek myself out, but why not? That's what you'll be doing. I'm going to have my tablet and my phone and my computer. Follow the rally at Dakar.com. It's a great event. An awful lot is happening. And the trucks, look at the trucks. They used to, this is a quick thing. I know the producers are going bananas right now for time, but the trucks that run at the back of the rally used to be the service trucks, but in order to get to the bivouac, they had to race each other. So they decided to make a competition out of it. And that's why these huge trucks are racing at Dakar. That's the Racing Insiders for this week. Want to see you next week. Until then, take care of each other and respect each other. For Jeff Lepper in Folsom, I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. Look forward to seeing you next week. Peace.